Welcome to the Ladies' Room, where politics meets women's issues, and we're not here to sugarcoat anything. We're diving headfirst into the stories that matter to women, from Washington power plays to battles over our basic rights. It's bold, it's unapologetic, and yeah, it's going to get messy. Because let's face it, the fight for equality always is. Grab a drink, pull up a chair, and let's get into it. This is the Ladies' Room.
Hello.
Welcome to the Ladies' Room, where
Hello. Wouldn't be a ladies' room without technical difficulties. So, how's everyone doing today? Yes, hit the like and subscribe. What a day. I just got back from my daughter's concert, so I am rushed, but it's okay. And hi, Amber. I hope I'm not having technical difficulties. Just let me know that you can hear me. Oh, God. I hope it's not that bad. Okay, great. So it is just me today. Deidre is getting her daughter married for the weekend, so she'll be gone, and Leah will probably be gone till the uh, after the new year. So y'all are stuck with just me today. So today we're going to talk about a few things and kind of pivot off. If y'all follow the Tony Michaels podcast, I know a lot of you do, kind of pivot off of what he's been saying the past few days as far as Democrats' messaging and what that looks like. Um, and I know I've had some questions about, because it's a different kind of messaging that he's been talking about, and I think that it feels kind of counterintuitive a bit of what the class consciousness idea is. But I have to say that I really think he's onto something, and people that have picked up on, you know, kind of getting off the culture war idea and really just pushing the narrative about because that's what it's really about. It's a class issue. And I think that the death of Brian Thompson, the UnitedHealthcare CEO who was shot and killed in New York City earlier this week or over the week, no, at this point it's last week. Um, it's I think it's really brought out in the country kind of what exactly is pissing us all off. And it's not each other. Because I don't know how many billionaires make up the United States, or even like upper millionaires, like just shy of $1 billion. I think it's quite a few. But even all of those totaled probably don't add up to five. I would say maximum 10% of the population is like this uber wealthy class that is calling all the shots, but I think it's probably closer to 2 or 3%, but I'm not really sure about those stats. I probably should have looked that up before I got on here and started running my mouth. But so anyway, I think that he's onto something. And I wrote a Substack this week. I mentioned that I think last week I started a Substack. I'm not really sure where it's going, but I made a comment. Well, it's actually pretty long. It's more than just a comment. But what it's about is you all, if you watch Tony or you follow the news, if you're watching me and Tony, you probably are political junkies. Oh wow, Elon is the first 400 billionaire. That's crazy. Um, so here's what I wrote in the Substack. It's long. Stick with it. It really has a point. It gets to what I think Democrats can really get out of that issue with Ben Shapiro just going on this rant that, is wild. I think Tony played some clips earlier in the week, but I'm kind of glad that that happened because it really shows what the fissure is. And I think if Democrats really wake the frick up and realize this, they can, they should, what happened with Ben Shapiro really is a good example of what liberals do all the time. I'm talking pre-election, obviously, of how they get outraged and we take the cheap bait. And also a side note, in that article, I fully recognize that I'm part of the liberal left that mismessaged too. So, um, I read the room wrong. Lots of people did. Political expert strategists read the room wrong. But going back to, Ben Shapiro, he's a great example of a mirror of what we kind of look like when we start throwing out abstract concepts that seem obvious to us, but just don't hit home with a lot of Americans, even though they should. I've always said we have to operate in the world we live in, not the world that we should live in. Because to get to what we should live in, we have to deal with what is the current reality. So, I'm going to play some clips of what I think Ben Shapiro's most egregious mistakes were and kind of just talk about it with you guys. It's a slightly different take on it than Tony's. I guess you could say I'm translating Tony into slightly more academic, and I guess that's what my Substack is taking the sentiment of the fucking fam and put it into slightly more academic terms so people get it. So, yeah. So has everybody seen that, you know, I watched the Ben Shapiro rant, all 50 minutes of it, and my ears bled like, yeah, exactly, Cynthia. He is, uh, yeah, Jack. It is a fucking stack in a little, in a way, a fucking, yeah. I love that. That's great. Oh, and we have a special guest. So he's in the green room, and I'm gonna bring him up. I hope he's ready. Hello, Tony. Welcome. I'm having. I can't hear you.
Is that much better? Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go. Oh, it's not me. Usually it's me. Yeah, learn American sound language. So anyway, let's try this again. Welcome to the ladies' room.
Yes.
Everybody doesn't have to just listen for. I stay as long as you want. There's no. We're kind of our motto is better than adequate here. So.
I can barely hear you. I don't know why.
Oh, why is that?
I'm hoping it's something on my end. Let me leave and I'll come back. I'll come back. Let me make sure.
It's usually a lot of times. So, um, I'm glad Tony could join us so you're not just listening to me the whole time.
Okay. I'm still having trouble hearing you, but we can't. No one can hear you. Sounds like the chat has got a problem. So while you look at your audio there.
I know what happened. Now you probably can hear me.
Yeah. Now we can hear you. There you go. So
Haha.
so you're gonna show clips of Mr.
I had
Shapiro.
I had a few clips just for when we hit some topics.
Because I actually didn't watch any of his show because I'm kind of like, no, thank you. I don't know. Do you curse on your show here? So
yeah,
no?
probably not as much,
Oh.
but it's not like not as much as you just because I don't curse
Okay.
it. But yeah,
Well, I don't. Oh, okay. Well, good. Fuck that shit then. So, I did not watch. What I did was I heard the story. So, we actually pulled the transcript of the video, and then I pulled part of the chat transcript as well. And I just threw it in AI and had AI evaluate it for me. So,
well, I did the same thing, but I don't know what possessed me. I'm more of an audio person.
sure.
So I listened to the whole damn thing, but I did use the transcript so I could easily cut, so I didn't have to like keep like going back and finding the exact point. So that was very helpful for just clipping it. But like it is the whole thing. It's an experience, and like it's one thing to read it, but to hear that guy's voice talk, it's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah,
dude?
Ben
Like,
Shapiro, he's a really intelligent guy, and he's a man's man, okay? He's a man's man.
he
It
is a
always
man's
reminds me.
man.
Sure. Sure. You know what's funny about that is I had a friend for a while, and he's still a good friend of mine. I just don't talk to him as much anymore. But I had a good friend for a while, and he would always be saying weird stuff to me. And one day I looked at him, I said, "You listen to Ben Shapiro, don't you?" And he's like, "How did you know?" I'm like, "Just from the words out of your mouth. I can tell." He's like, "Are you serious?" I'm like, "Yeah, that's how it works, man. Like you listen to something long enough, you start to sound like it, and you sound like Ben Shapiro." And I said, "You sound like you're trying to be smart, but you're not actually making a point."
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
No, well, the clips that I did come up with and clipped are really from the first, I would say, really the first 10 minutes is the most offensive. If you really want to hear some like word salad logic, which he's a graduate from Harvard, so he knows, he's got to know what he's saying. He's full of shit because, I would say minute 11 to maybe a half
You
hour.
think Ben Shapiro, with that kind of ego, being from Harvard, actually knows he's full of shit? Do you believe that?
A little bit, because think about it. Okay, he has to have some level of critical thinking skills. I'm gonna give him the benefit.
You're saying he's not stupid. You're saying he's not
stupid. He can analyze. Okay, so minutes 11 to I don't know, like a half hour into his little rant thing are about saying how the leftists who have no sympathy for Brian Thompson, it's going to lead to revolution like the Marxists in Germany. And he starts going into like all the revolutions that happened between the fascists that were still in West Germany, and East Germany was trying to like reclaim, like it was like this, and Indonesia and all of this like crazy revolution from the 70s, right? From the 70s. And it's like this horrific false comparison. Like you cannot compare outrage and lack of sympathy over he's probably a billionaire when it comes down to it, who's murdered on the street, and people don't feel sorry for him. You don't compare that to the start of like a revolution that like kills thousands of people in a foreign country. Completely different circumstances. And but I think the first 10 minutes is really the most offensive, and what Democrats, dear fucking Lord, listen, Democrats, to like what the right's doing. They're showing us what we look like mirrored. So like the whining of Ben Shapiro is kind of like the whining of Democrats.
Uh-huh.
And and I met I don't know how much you heard before you got here, but I wrote this Substack that's kind of long.
Yeah. I listened to about I missed about the first 3 minutes, but I got most of what you said before I got set up here.
So, it was mainly like what Democrats, I'm to blame too. I had the messaging completely wrong. I read the room wrong. But the one difference is that Democrats aren't nearly as offensive as some of these right-wing people. But
Well, I
so
mean, but
I'm gonna
that's right wing ideology though, and really to tap into fascism, they have to go there. When you're tapping into the extremism that they're trying to tap into, it's the same reason like when we get really upset, like this Free Palestine movement, when they're saying like to the river, to the sea, stuff like that, and you're like, whoa, 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 what are
yeah,
you doing? Like that's anti-Semitic and it's really offensive. That's what extreme rhetoric
yeah,
does, and it's designed to do. Because you got to remember the reason why I came to the conclusion of where our messaging needs to be is because of the Overton window. And I got super stoned one night, like just I was just baked
it
to the
happens.
max. Right? Well, no, I needed that space, and I was watching a lot of libtards, that people that the right would call it. And I'm like, holy moly. Like now I realize what they're trying to say. And it's not that they're correct, but that Overton window is
Yeah,
stretched, right? So
it is.
usually in politics, the Overton window will shift. But when it shifted so far left under Obama, because it did shift very far left, we may not want to think of it that way, but
It
in
did though,
American
yeah.
politics, it did it. And it's not that it shifted really far left, far left, but it shifted so fast. That shift
Yeah.
was almost instantaneous. And the trouble is that a part of the country, and mainly the right wing and some moderates and centrist, they wanted to shift the window back, and that was the Tea Party movement, that was the Freedom Caucus, that was a lot of those things that came about inside of our political bodies to try to shift
Right.
that Overton window back. And what they do is they adopt more radical rhetoric that makes it more acceptable. And once it's more acceptable, the Overton window, because that's what the Overton window is, it's the amount of political rhetoric that is acceptable in our society. But when Trump came along, uh, Trump really used fascism, racism, and bigotry not to move the Overton window, but to stretch the Overton window. So the trouble that we really
Right.
have is that the Overton window is too far stretched. So we have radical beliefs on both ends of the political spectrum
Yeah.
that are acceptable in our society. Well, the problem is those acceptable political opinions in our society are diametrically opposed, and that's where it feels like we're so divided. But what happens is it's just that these two ends fighting, and everyone else is in between, listening to the back and forth. And they,
That's a really good
and they have to
analogy.
engage it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
That's
And
a
that's
really good analogy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's really what has happened. So we don't need to shift the Overton window, and we can't really shift it. Like there's no shifting it. We're pretty
Right.
well
Right.
stretched as far as we can get. What we have to do is we have to shrink the Overton window, and what it is more of
Mhm.
a political reset. Is the way I'm thinking of it, and that's why I'm pushing that narrative, pushing that message to try to cascade that messaging to shrink the Overton window, to basically make the political radicals, their ideals not as acceptable in our society. Now, that doesn't mean they don't exist. That doesn't mean that people don't have the right to have those opinions. It's just they're not going to voice them very loud, because if they do, they're going to get major pushback, right? And it's not going to be
Right.
pushback for clicks, likes, and money. It's going to be pushback in that you are not inside what is acceptable. So, that
Right.
kind,
Right.
I watched a ACLU lawyer the other day. Right wingers were pushing this video around, and they're basically, in all intents and purposes, advocating for physical surgery of trans children and the consent of parents, which is exactly what they're saying that all the left wants to do, which is not true. It is not true that the left wants that and Democrats
Mhm.
want that. There are radicals on the left who believe it's okay to give that consent to parents, but that doesn't mean anyone's forcing it on any parent or any kid outside the consent. But
Right.
that kind of talk should not be acceptable in our Overton window. And what I mean by that is
Right.
that it's not that you can't have that opinion, but it's not dialogue that would be part of the natural discourse in our organic discourse and be acceptable.
Yeah. And like what I think people are getting a little confused is it's not that you shouldn't speak out. If you see something horrible, speak out about it because, like if you don't, nobody will. But at the same time, when you let's say you hear some right-wing lunatic say some bullshit about trans people, they're trying to get you to take the bait because what Trump has done so brilliantly, and I wish I had seen it first, I wish I had been me to notice it even now, is that he puts the bait out to make us outrage, and then we freak out, and then he doesn't do what he says he's going to do. So is he going to do a lot of horrible shit? Absolutely. But some of it he is just saying so that we freak out, and then when he doesn't do it, he's going to be like, look, the liberals, they're liars.
Well, and that's a good point because we have been under this impression this whole time that Trump is a dum-dum. And I want to reassure everyone that Trump is not stupid. Now, he's a buffoon, right? And he's a clown, which is different than being dumb and stupid. A clown can be very brilliant and mesmerize you with his moves and his clownery, okay? And that is what Trump is doing. Trump is really good at reading a room. And when you read a room, you are reading that room's Overton window. And what I mean by that is what is acceptable in that room and what is not acceptable in that room. He's really good at that. That's why he was able to stretch it. It just didn't move. He stretched that damn thing. And that's the other thing that people need to understand is that he's talking inside the Overton window to all those people. And he's not just talking to the right. He is baiting the left to get the right wing people more outraged. He's baiting them. And he knows that he's doing. He is strumming the strings of society, and it's
he's good at it.
Yeah. Oh, he's unfortunately he's a master at it. He's a master at it. He is more like Mussolini than he is like Hitler.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I didn't think he was. I knew he was smart in the ways like of how he, reads the room and plays into people's emotions and is very good at pitting people at one another and like getting things to stick and kind of like the WWE concept, like he makes it entertaining and he gets audience participation so you're invested in it. So like I knew he was smart in that respect, but I highly underestimated his talent for stretching the Overton window and then making us freak out, making the liberals freak out so that we start saying, Trump's going to do this, Trump's going to do that. And he's going to be like, I'm not going to do that. And then he's like, see, I didn't do it. The liberals are liars. And then, but at the same time, he's telling the right, hey, I'm going to do this. Hey, I'm going to do that. And and he pretends
he pretends to do it just enough to keep them satisfied. Right.
Right.
Just enough. Now, I'm not saying that he's not a danger. Okay, that's not what I'm saying.
Absolutely,
because this is all dangerous. Having this Overton window stretch for too long of a period of time is very dangerous to our society, and to our Constitution and to our nation, and to the lives of people here. So I want people to understand that it is important to understand that this is a very dangerous moment in the world. And world leaders understand that, and we should understand that. But having understanding that, what we should do is we should act not based on what a losing strategy is, but seek a winning strategy. And my call to action for commentators and other political actors out there, people who are involved in pushing political messaging and narrative and rhetoric, is that you need to change because what you were doing, especially on the left, is wrong. It did not work and it will not work. It's not going to work. The brand of the Democratic Party, like I said the other day, I'm not anti-establishment. I'm non-establishment because I'm not against our democratic institutions. But but because I'm non-establishment, I will say that the Democratic brand is absolutely terrible. And the reason why is because they try so hard. Kamala Harris really did try hard to be, to outwoke everyone, but then stay a centrist, right? So she could win the vote. And it
Yeah.
didn't work. It didn't work.
It wasn't.
And she's a woman and she's black. So that really, it didn't work. What she should have done is she talked about kitchen table issues constantly and baited
Yeah.
Trump into conversations about kitchen table issues. And the way that she would have done that is basically make him talk about how rich he was and basically talk about how rich his backers were and Elon was and how rich they were.
Yes.
If she would have been able to bait him into that, I believe it would have been a totally different election. Now, she had a lot of headwind against her. She only had a certain amount of time to get this done. I believe that a lot of her campaign, not her specifically, but her campaign saw an opportunity to steal $1 billion. Now, and when I say steal, I don't literally mean steal, but
Yeah.
they definitely seized the opportunity to stuff millions of dollars into their bank accounts while they watched Donald Trump win. Whether he won or not, they didn't really care. Their bank accounts are full, so what do they care? They'll get on a first-class flight to somewhere else with their passport if shit
Yeah.
goes south. So
I don't think she could have done really. I mean, sure, there's things that she could have done better, but I think with what's the time she had, I think she ran a really good campaign. It was just the wrong messaging because I think also Joe Biden kind of held her back too in this one way, in the like she tied herself too much to Biden, and I think it was I've heard commentators say it was a loyalty thing. She doesn't strike me as the type who.
No, she's a prosecutor. Let's be honest.
You know what I'm
Prosecutors are not loyal. They're not loyal
So
at all.
I don't think it was, and I'm sure I think she believes in the policies.
Well, and the problem is that Democrats tend to have this idea that they want to be wonky, which is really stupid. This is the dumbest thing ever to be wonky. Like when she would describe her policies, she wasn't describing it in ways that people who were needing to vote for her would hear it, right? They weren't hearing what they wanted for themselves. They heard what everyone else was going to get. So when Kamala Harris would say like they're going to get a $25,000 tax credit for a home, you're going to get a $6,000 child tax credit, that what they should have done is that each one of your children that you have, you're going to get $6,000 in your bank account. Like that's how they should have described it. That's how they should have messaged it. This tax credit, tax cut, tax bullshit. Listen, poor people do not buy into tax shit. They don't. Because
they
they're
don't
like,
understand it.
No, well, not only do they understand it, they're like, I don't make enough money to pay taxes. What are you talking about? I've never had to pay tax. Most Americans with children have a credit that they get each year. It's what keeps most Americans going. Most Americans, their refund, their tax refund, that's actually most of it's child tax credit that is given to them by the government as an earned income. And the reason why is because the government has to subsidize parents' income through that child tax credit, because otherwise children wouldn't eat, children wouldn't get educated, they wouldn't be clothed. We would literally live in an impoverished nation if our government didn't give families a child tax credit in their tax refund. And most people don't even know that their income's being subsidized. Just like, well, I get my money back every year and I get a whole bunch of money and I'm rich for like 4 months. And that's how I feel really comfortable for about 4, 5, 6 months of the year. And then the rest of the year is just total stress. And that's how Americans kind of live. And because of that, that's our nature now, which is wrong. The child tax credit. Yeah. Well, the child tax credit would be much better if it was just automatically deposited into Americans' bank accounts each month.
Yeah.
And the reason
like they did
during COVID.
Biden was first elected. That was so awesome.
Well, and the point of that is to make sure that Americans understand that it's money that the government is subsidizing their income for, because they do not make enough money to be above the poverty line. And if you let me let me tell you, if you receive a earned income credit of any kind through your deductions and your tax, you are not a rich person. You are not rich. You are not middle class. You are working class or working poor. You are one of those
Absolutely.
two. And it's okay. That's okay. We just need to realize that that's where we're at in society.
Mhm. Well, I said we have to really have a long, hard look at the world we live in versus the world we want to live in, and
Right.
really start making smarter choices in the respect of like who we're running in elections. Like, don't put people who off the rip are not going to win. Like running, running anyone against Marjorie Taylor Greene who isn't a white male. Don't bother, because that's the only person that she lives in the origins of the KKK, where she represents. It's a really, really racist area. So should it be like that? Absolutely not. People shouldn't be that bigoted and racist and just ignorant. But
Well,
that's
and
the
you know
reality of
where a
it.
lot of that comes from, because I grew up, excuse me, in an all white area and the town I grew up in was very racist. But we had no one to be racist against, because there was no black people who lived in our town. I mean, I think there was one black kid in our high school. And he was one of the good ones. That would be what we
Yeah.
would have said, which is a really racist thing to say. But we weren't able to be racist. Like, we could go to towns that were, half hour away, an hour away, and there would be black communities in those towns. So we definitely, when I was a kid growing up, you would see black people, but you didn't converse with them. You really didn't interact with them in your normal everyday life, because the community I lived in was all white. But I will say, what it developed is this weird dichotomy where it was more of a classist type thing in our town, right? So if you lived on a certain part of town, or you lived in a certain kind of house, right? You were one of the white N-words, right? So that class society started to leak into, well, but then the people who were the white N-words in the town, right? That's the way that the town thought.
Right.
That was their mindset. Those people were like, well, at least I'm not black. Okay. So what it does is it develops this very complex, very, very, very hard to understand hierarchy of how race and class intersect, and how it gets confusing and muddled, and the waters get muddied. And what happens is that we white people, especially real white people who don't experience different cultures than our real white culture, we get confused when we see people say certain things, because we only understand our hierarchy. Okay, that's what we
Right.
understand. And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of academics and intellectuals, is they don't really understand. I always say I speak fluent dumb fuck. And that's literally what I'm saying. It's not because those people are stupid. Listen, I have people who are drug dealers in my family, and some drug dealers I've met are dumb, but
Oh,
most of them I have met
some-
are really smart, intelligent
Yeah.
business people. The only reason why they're drug dealers is because they will make more money and pay less taxes, being drug dealers in rural areas, cooking and selling meth and getting people to cook and sell meth for
Right.
them, than they will just opening up a video store. Are there video store? There's no video stores anymore. Maybe I'm thinking about my community like there was a video store there. I don't know. I don't know why I said
like
that.
at one point there, yeah, we had a couple of video
Right,
stores
exactly,
in my
exactly.
town.
But you get
But,
what
you
I'm
know-
saying is that
Yeah,
this culture, America is very big and very diverse. And I don't mean race or religion. I mean culture. Even white culture
Land.
is very different, right?
Yeah,
It's very
absolutely
different.
right. A New
Mhm.
York white.
Well,
like
you've
me,
been
is
all
very-
over the you've been all over the country,
very-
so you know much better than I do. But again,
Well,
our country is very diverse in culture.
funny? You know what's funny? Because I kind of grew up in the polar opposite of you. Because I grew up right outside New York City. And my school district, like I was in a neighborhood where like it was middle class, like actual middle class, working class people, where I was zoned in with the affluent people. So like, but class wasn't really a thing. Like it was such an odd dichotomy because like I'd also like I'll never forget this time. So everybody is so different from like you'd walk down the hallways of my high school and like hear like 5 different languages, and none of them were one of them was likely Spanish. Like there was just so many different immigrants from like the most obscure
shit! That
countries
where I'm from, they can barely speak English. So,
so like
yeah.
you know, like I'll never forget this one time in high school. I learned what a WASP was. You know, white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Okay, I didn't think those people existed anymore.
Oh, they're
because
real.
Let me tell you something. The white people in my circle at that time, you were either Jewish or Catholic. And I knew white people, I knew Protestants, I knew people of Anglican descent, but finding all 3 at once was a tall order in my circle of influence. So I didn't think those people existed. And like when I went to college, I got culture shocked into this tiny ass town where everybody's white, and I'm like, wow, everyone looks like copy paper. Like
yeah, right. It's like a big box of saltines just exploded everywhere.
Like where's the brown people? Like
right.
where y'all? And you know where they were? They were at the colleges.
Right. They were at Harvard and Yale's and the big ones. Well, you know, because I want to get to the speaking of Harvard and I want to get to I want to watch these Ben Shapiro clips that you've got. But I want to say one more thing is that I want everyone to know that this space should be appreciated, and the reason why is because this space does intersect with the academic and intellectual style commentary, and kind of weave in, how you speak. Like I say, how do you speak, dumb fuck? Because I think it's very important for us to create conduits from these different parts of our culture.
Yeah. And you know what? Like one thing I'm kind of on this, and I'm half joking when I say this, but I'm kind of serious at the same time, is that like the Substack that I created, that I really don't know where it's going, but I just know this. Academics, I speak dumb fuck, I speak regular person, and I'm fluent in academic. I'm fluent in all 3. So my colleagues at work may not listen to someone like you, but they listen to somebody like me, and vice versa. People that may not listen to me, but they'll listen to you. And so I think having like kind of like that I don't know. Oh, it was Key and Peele who did like the Obama interpreter, where.
Right.
So it's kind of like that is what I'm going for. Like academics, stop it, because I know how college professors work. During COVID, I lost my shit in a group email because they were talking about like to death about how men, this was during COVID, men are affected by lack of childcare, and we can't just talk about women and childcare. And I'm just like, and I had like 200 emails of people going back and forth and back, and I'm just like, stop it. Of course it affects men too. Yeah. But you know what? It affects women. And I cited a whole bunch of, because academics need facts. So I cited a whole bunch. Stop it. Like, stop this. So academics need to stop this, because we're going to lose our country, because we got to stop.
Yeah, because the truth is more important than the feeling, and they don't understand that people's truth is their feeling. They're ignoring human condition. They should go get data, statistics, and facts, and do some polls on human condition. Then maybe they'd understand. And I played that video that Tizzy reposted the other day where this guy was just spewing out data. I'm like, this is making it worse. This is making it way worse. No one wants to hear how guilty we should be about being an Americans and how guilty we should be about how we've enriched the richer and made them richer. Let's just do something about it. Like, why are we standing
Right.
around trying to guilt ourselves?
Well, I do think there is a place and a time for charts and statistics. But typically, if your audience is mixed, like on your podcast, that's not like nobody wants to see that.
No. Well, I mean, I'm not the guy that's going to deliver it to him either, because I'm not that wonky type. And again, I go look at I do a lot of fact digging, and I do a lot of that sort of thing. But and really honestly, now that I have AI, it's a lot faster for me, because I just tell it what I want to know. Like, here's what I want to know about whatever the hell I'm giving you, and then it spits it out to me. I'm like, okay, that's much faster. Now I don't have to spend as much time trying to figure out verifying one way or the other.
Yeah, and you know what? Like, I take a little bit more time because the people who's going to likely be a good chunk of my audience, potentially, I'm talking about Substack, it's also the librarian in me, but I also have a remarkable AI software that can I can do a citation like that. Like, you hit a browser extension and it sometimes it misses what the news source is or what the website name is, but it's like, well, and
I think a lot of people are misinterpreting some tools in AI and how we're using them. I want to get to the Ben Shapiro clip, because I don't have too much.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I talked too much.
But I will say that the AI is going to make the best of us better. I like to put it that way. Yep.
Yeah, and I also have a librarian-ish Substack that's not you guys are more than welcome to read it, but you're not going to find it interesting. It's mostly meant for and I'm creating it targeting librarians, because librarians need to get the fuck over AI. They need to get over it.
Do they not like AI? It's like their community hates it.
It depends. It depends. And I experience it a little bit more because I'm working in university libraries, so that's my peer group. But you have a huge spectrum of it has no place in libraries, and then it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. And it's like when Wikipedia came out, people tried to fight it. And you know what? I just taught kids how to, students how to use it responsibly. And the same thing with AI. It makes my job so much easier. I pay for it.
Well, one more point on that before we play this, because I want to see the clip. But
okay, I'm sorry.
The thing is that the generations behind us are way more skeptical of the internet than we'll ever dream of being, because they're being taught to be skeptical. So that's the first thought in their mind: is this real? When they see something. So, all right, let's watch this Ben Shapiro. I want to watch his ass whine about this. Let's listen.
But let me just put a side note. This one is, I sped up his voice a little bit, so he's going to sound even better.
I can't wait now.
But he's talking about how the left is a bunch of Marxist evil creatures, sea creatures, and so anyway, it's like 16 seconds long, but it's powerful. So that was one of them.
I didn't hear any of it.
No, don't tell me these things.
I'm sorry.
Oh.
I want to lie to you, but I couldn't tell you what he said because I didn't hear it.
I have an idea.
Are you playing it through the
I'm sharing it through
your computer?
Through screen share. But it's not on a browser tab, so that might be.
Yeah, throw it up in a browser tab. and then
I
share
don't think I can.
and then you just drag and drop the file in a Chrome tab, and it'll pull it up.
Oh, you can do that?
Yeah, shit, yeah.
Sick. I did not know that.
I've had to learn all kinds of quick production
Okay.
things on the fly, because if I don't, then I get myself into trouble. So I've learned a lot of stuff in the last 4 years. If you go back and like listen or watch like the first 100 episodes of my show, you're like, Jesus Christ, Tony didn't know a goddamn thing about like the software and how to do it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Did you throw it up in a Chrome tab? Did it work?
Yeah, hell yeah, it did. That's a great. That is a great little handy trick.
So now you're gonna use the Chrome tab.
Okay, so fingers crossed.
As long as you have the sound
This stuff
on.
means that if you don't like that health insurers often deny coverage for certain pre-existing conditions or non-covered doctors or medication, you can then murder the CEO of a health insurance company. This is revolutionary leftist evil. And it's evil for a couple of reasons.
Okay, so this has got the thing that he's describing has nothing to do with ideology. What he's saying is that premiums and claims that are denied make someone so enraged that they want to kill the person responsible is a leftist idea. That is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. That is so stupid.
Okay, so then we have another one.
Okay.
What I thought was some of the highlights, and by highlights I mean not so much, but like it's just I'll let him do the work.
Oh, and by the way, you don't have to close the Chrome tab. You just, at the top of the Chrome tab, there's a little button that says switch to this Chrome tab. And you just hit that one and it switches.
Okay.
I'm going to give you all kinds of tips today. I'm just that
maybe
good.
one of these days I will get it right.
I'm just that good.
You are.
Again,
it
took me a long time to be this good at StreamYard, but I'm pretty good at it.
Okay. There we go. I'm not good with clips yet. Images and that kind of thing. But all right, so we'll hear this one.
Brian Thompson's great sin, according to these people, is that he was the head of a company that exists within a mixed private-public healthcare framework, and that he did his job, because that's how health insurance actually works. Some things are covered and some things are not. And you may not like the application of the coverage, and it may be bad. That is not an excuse for murder.
No shit, it's not.
Again, the problem is that what he's missing is that the system is so stacked against people, right? And this idea that you can just get a different insurance plan. Once you have cancer and it's stage 4 and your loved one's about to die and they won't give them treatment, or they won't give them treatment fast enough, there is no switching. And there is no, oh, well, that's my insurance, so who gives a shit? You're like, no, that's not how people think. That's not how, that's like believing that humans are going to react a certain way to like woke ideas. No, they're not. You got to be realistic about these things.
Right.
Is that what the chat, is that kind of what the chat, I guess that's why they killed him on it?
Oh, I have photos of the chat too, but there's a couple more.
All right.
Bear with me.
Okay.
Bear with me. They're worth it. Stick with me. Okay.
Screen cap of a New York Times headline that said torrent of hate for health insurance industry follows CEO's killing. That piece from the New York Times is all about people who apparently were perfectly fine with the murder of Brian Thompson on the streets of New York City. According to the New York Times, none of this stopped social media commentators from leaping to conclusions and showing a blatant lack of sympathy over the death of a man who is a husband and father of 2 children. Thoughts and deductibles to the family, read one comment underneath the video of the shooting posted online by CNN. Unfortunately, my condolences are out of network. A TikTok user wrote, quote, I'm an ER nurse, and the things I've seen dying patients get denied for by insurance, it makes me physically sick. I just can't feel sympathy for him because of all those patients and their families. And these sorts of messages were incredibly common across the internet. We discussed yesterday a Columbia professor who wrote something very similar. Unfortunately, bubbling under the surface of all this is something very serious, really serious. What is that serious thing? The revolutionary left is creeping into the mainstream.
The revolutionary left. That is hilarious. That's great. I gotta hand it to Ben. Dude, you're killing it over there. Keep going with that stuff. I hope he keeps talking about it that way.
Oh, hold up. This is the last one, and this is the one that I sped up because it would have been way longer. It is about tyranny, and this is the comment that I think blew the lid off of people's minds in the comment section. Because
that may have been one of the comments that AI pulled out for me.
Because his tone-deafness and I'll let it fly. Here we go.
The process. This is why democracies are generally good, because they outsource the violence to the government. Revolution to overthrow tyranny is justified, but tyranny has to be actually real, and violence has to be the last resort. I didn't like public policy in California, so I picked up my family and my company, and we left. Okay, tyranny is not real in the case of healthcare in the United States, and violence is not being used as last resort in this particular case. If you perceive America to be a tyranny and violence to be the proper response, that is a call for unending violence until the system itself is changed. It's a call for revolution. When you say it's okay to murder CEOs on the street, that is a call for revolution. Second, violence against members of private industry, that isn't even a protest of public policy. Let's be fair about this. That isn't even shooting politicians, which would be evil enough. It's even a different level of evil, because it's a protest against the very system of free markets themselves. Brian Thompson isn't responsible for America's healthcare system any more than the head of CVS is responsible for America's trade system. Directing hatred against Brian Thompson is not about shaping public policy, because you could shoot every CEO in America and it wouldn't shape public policy. It turns out that it's about trying to threaten anyone who engages in free markets at all. This is simply Marxist, leftist, radical evil. This person could just as easily have shot a doctor who decided not to perform a surgery, or shot a bank CEO who denied a loan.
Oh my God. This guy's so out of touch with reality.
You cannot compare not liking California and moving your family to someone who cannot afford healthcare because profit. And this is, it's hard to tell what caused the uproar, but looking at the timing of things, and I spent way too much time analyzing this. Way too much. But that was the comment that got people, the tyranny, what actual tyranny is.
He's supposed to be smart too. He's supposed to be smart.
Absolutely. And
by the way, I want to say, because one of the statements that he made, which I think is probably the most significant, that if you shot and killed every CEO in the country, that it wouldn't shape public policy. That is absolutely absurd.
That is
100%. If CEOs started getting dropped dozens by the day, it would 100% shape public policy. No question, without a doubt. Now it wouldn't be the way that we think it would be. It wouldn't be good for society. We would go to feudalism quick, fast, and in a hurry. But because they would protect their interest. But I'm telling you, if it was the case that there's this big tyrannical Marxist leftist movement that is going to cause revolution and get out the guillotines, right? Let me tell you, dropping all the CEOs in this country absolutely would change and shape public policy. He is a bonehead for even saying that out loud.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is actually really just asinine is that's the whole point of the CEO. He directs the company towards growth. And if the company doesn't grow enough, or he makes a decision that flops and the company loses a lot of money, he gets his ass booted, because his whole purpose is to put his name to the company and take the punches when, during bad times, and take the rewards when it's good times. And I have no doubt that is no different with Brian Thompson. He shaped the denial policy of I don't know what their quota was.
Of course he did. And he's the CEO, so he sat in meetings to listen to people and read reports of how many of their customers they were going to estimate that were going to die because of their denials. This is
right.
Ridiculous that Brian Thompson had no clue that there's no way he was responsible for the death of people that were insured by his company. It's absolutely asinine.
I just wanted to show a few of the comments.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how
What was the
many,
one comment that you thought was the most significant? Which one was that?
Oh no, that what Ben said.
I thought you meant a comment, because the comment that that popped out to me in the comment section, that's where I got the up versus down. Did you know that? I got the messaging and the
Oh,
rhetoric
get out.
because I did. Yeah. So it's always the haves have nots, which that's probably where I'm going to move to. I like the up and down thing because then you can do different things with language, like up and down, like I did today, like upgrade and downgrade. You can do different things with language with up and down, but have and have not is the actual phrase that people are familiar with. That's the one that triggers it in their brain. Haves and have nots, because they put themselves, when you say haves and have nots, you're like, well, I'm a have not. Yeah, I've struggled. Right. So that's the,
Right.
but the have and have not puts like middle-class millionaires, like I've been saying, it puts them in the have category, not the have not. So they start to side with the up, not the down. Right. So up versus down is a better illustration of where our society is at, as opposed to haves and have nots, because there are haves in our society that have enough to be comfortable, but they don't understand the widening gap between them and the actual haves. So, and that's where I got that phrase, up and down, was in his comment.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You got to steal. Listen, everyone thinks that like my ideas come from my brain. I steal almost everything that I say. I just kind of shape it around and I reform it, and I just kind of make something new out of it.
You'd make a good librarian, because that's what a lot of us do. We just steal each other's ideas.
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean,
it's an honor to have another librarian like take your shit that you put on a research guide and they tweak it to fit their needs. And
just don't tell the person that wrote that shit in Ben Shapiro's chat that I stole his messaging, because they probably come like, I want my money now. I want my likeness.
Credit.
I want my money, my likeness rights.
That's awesome. I think this screenshot had some of my favorite comments, just because they had some like we might have, and that's why I titled the thumbnail "A Break in Their Armor," because I think we really found a break in the right's armor with this, because we also we identified how in this moment they were pinning us together. A lot of these comments you saw were talking about, you're just being divisive, you're trying to pin us against each other. This isn't a partisan issue. We have to perpetually, from now until the midterms, perpetually look for opportunities to, when we see them dividing, find a way to stitch us back together. Because that's the only way we're going to shrink the Overton window. We have to find ways that, hey, and I'm talking about, when I say this, I'm talking about mom and pop MAGA. I'm not talking about elitist MAGA, but probably mom and pop MAGA are not my enemy. Probably, they like a lot more of the policies that we have, but they've just been told that they don't like the policies that we are, you know what I'm saying? So I think we really need to take advantage of these opportunities in messaging. When we see the right fuck up and start pulling a liberal, we need to be
when the left versus right argument starts to affect them, then yes, that is where we're up the right avenue. When the left starts, I'm trying to see if I can find that in my archive here of that comment.
But let me just read this one for the audience.
Yeah, go ahead.
You're looking at for that. So one of them that was kind of made me think, oh my God, we might be shrinking the window. My God, conservatives, liberals, and lefties are hugging it out in the comments. My God, this is beautiful. And then this one kind of got me, because it made me realize that healthcare is something that we can, I'm going to use your words, shrink the window, because it affects us all and it stings us all. We all have a story, or we know somebody who has a story. And so this one is, you're wrong, Ben. I'm that quote unquote evil leftist you always rage about. I have an uncle who is as conservative as they come, voted for Trump and everything. We have very little in common and avoid each other at holiday parties. I can tell you we both wept when my dad slowly died of cancer, while the insurance he paid for kept denying him life. And there's more to it, but I can't actually click on the read more. But that really kind of, I don't want to say it got the feels, but it kind of did, because that was, I guess it was maybe an aha moment, because that's the break in the armor. That's how we, and this part of like, we have to look for the opportunities. We'll probably miss some opportunities, but when we start like seeing them, we have to like drive in the wedge and kind of almost adapt Dr. Rachel Bittercoffer's book, and pivoting in a different way. I guess is where I'm going with. I had a very hard time articulating my Substack, which is what I used AI for. Was, hey, make this idea make sense.
Yeah, I have this big grand idea. Please help me make it make sense. So I use AI all the time in that way, because I have this idea and I'm trying to articulate it in a way that's presentable to the audience. Because I'm a pretty good storyteller, I feel like. And
you are a very good storyteller, absolutely.
And I try to use a story that's very relatable. Like today, I did the football thing, where we're on teams, to describe how this is going to work, like how shrinking the Overton window is going to work. And I didn't even use the words Overton window on my show today, but it was what I had in mind. Is because what you got to do is you have to get people in one corner of the Overton window to start to agree with the other people in the other side of the Overton window, two people that are diametrically opposed, that there are certain ideas that are not acceptable, and society follows them in that acceptability, right. And it starts to shrink that window.
We need some leadership.
Right. And I can't find the comment, but I know that's where I actually got the comment. The messaging up versus down was in when I seen it, when it pulled it out, because I asked AI to analyze the transcript of Ben Shapiro and analyze the chat and put it together and say, hey, give me what his commentary was and what the chat was responding to him in. And it evaluated the whole thing in real time. And it gave me that one specific comment, which was, and it had the up versus down in it. And it went something like, it's not left versus right, it's up versus down. I'm like, oh my God, that is it. That's it.
I remember that one.
That's the paradigm. That's the paradigm shift. Okay. Because when you have a paradigm shift, you actually have to have something that's measurable, and that's a measurable shift.
Right.
So,
yeah.
So, and I wish I could quote it exactly, but it was left versus right. It's not left versus right. It's up versus down. And he was whoever commented that was directing it towards Ben. And I'm not sure if it was a lefty or a righty, but in the chat, the comments agreed with that. And that's why that comment was pulled out of the chat. Right.
With each other.
Right. And that's what AI was able to determine that comment there got a lot of different language that was typed back in that supported that comment and gave credence to, basically upvoted, if we're going to have upvotes in chat, which I wish YouTube had upvotes in chat.
I wish they did too. That's a cool feature.
And speaking of up and down, because then you'd have up chats and down chats, right? Up and down, not left and right. See that? Up and down, voted up, voted down.
Yes.
I'm glad you had me join you, and I stayed for longer than I intended, and I'm glad that you had those clips for me, and I hope
they're kind of breathtaking, the Tone-Deafness. Because usually there's
it has been Shapiro. He's very tone deaf, and normally he's tone deaf to a different group of people, but he was tone deaf to the correct group of people this time. Which, in the effort of shrinking the Overton window, I want to thank Ben Shapiro for his effort. Whether he realized it wittingly or unwittingly, he is doing that. So I appreciate you giving me a space to talk about the Overton window. And
thank you for helping me articulate, what I'm trying to do. And I think all the little friends of the fucking fam work really well together, because we all have different
That's right. Mm-hmm.
We all have different niches that we can translate dumb fuck to.
That's right. That's right. And I have to go preheat an oven. So thank you for having me.
And I got to go eat frozen pizza. So
all right. See you later.
Thank you so much. I'll see you later, Tony.
Bye-bye. All
right, friends. Well, it is about an hour. Thank thank you all so much for coming and hanging out with us tonight. Cynthia, yeah, I wanted to add, will the break last? I don't know. It may get fixed, but what I mean by there's a break in the armor is that there can be a break in the armor if we, and when I say we, I mean the collective, I guess center left. If we really take the opportunity to find the instances when we can, do the up versus down messaging, hopefully something will, something will wedge into what the issues really are. But I don't know if it'll last. It'll probably heal itself, but I am sure something will happen where, Ben Shapiro, Matt Walsh, those dudes. Matt Walsh also pissed off his audience. I can only listen to one, and it was Ben Shapiro this time. I'm sure there will be another instance where they're just tone deaf to their own audiences, and hopefully Democrats can freaking pick up on it and show some leadership. And it feels like they're resigned to just, this is the way life is, in which, why did you want to be in Congress or the Senate? Because, dear Lord. Well, I guess that's all for today. I thank you all so very much for coming and sharing and liking. If you haven't shared, liked, subscribed, please do so. That's my one grifty thing I'll do today. And I will be on next week. Wait, will I be on next week? Yes, I'll be on next week. Because Christmas is, I think, the week after. So have a great night, guys, and I will see you later. Bye, everyone. Good night.